All right, so it's been about 8 months since I've had the iPhone 14 Pro Max. I bought it on release day. And let me tell you a little bit about it. This is kind of like a long-term review of what I feel about the 14 Pro Max after using it basically as my daily the entire time since owning it. All right, now this is going to be my raw feel. I'm not really going to throw up a whole bunch of picture examples because guess what? The photos haven't changed since the phone first came out. So I got a few little high points that I'm going to talk about and I'm going to get you up out of here. All right, so the first thing that we got to talk about is the always on display. Okay, now I know this was very controversial when it first came out. Some people was just like, I'm not really feeling it. Some people cut it on, cut it off, and they never use it again. I was a person who I love the way that Android implements always on display. I still think it's the best that's out there in the market. So when Apple did it, I was like, you know what, I'm not really feeling it. But over the months, I realized that I've turned it on and I've never really turned it off. You know what I mean? Like, it's perfect for right there. You see, I got a Facebook notification and I feel like it has done the job and it's kind of acting just like an Android always on display would. I mean, I don't have any issues with it. I cut it on and it's still on. It pops up when you lift your phone up. It kind of shows you, your screen comes to life and it lets you know what notification you got right there. And I feel like it's pretty good. I feel like it's a smooth implementation. I don't really have a lot of issues with it. Thank you for Apple for updating the always on display, as a lot of us had complaints when it first came out, but you did your thing, you updated it, and it's been solid. I don't have an issue with it, and I have never turned it off, and I really don't plan on turning it off for the 14 Pro Max and for the future when I get the 15 or the 16 or whatever they have going on. I think I'm gonna keep it on because I've been feeling the always on display. Now, going to the next thing that the 14 Pro Max brings you is going to be the dynamic island. Now, I know a lot of people also did not like the island. You just like the implementation of the little peel cutout, not really this big old dynamic island. You don't really care for this up here, but I'm gonna tell you what, it doesn't bother me. Like, the much I look at content, if I'm looking at a particular content, it just doesn't bother me. Like, I'm clicking on some stuff. I mean, if you watch it like this, yes, it's there if you decide to zoom in. But in my opinion, it just doesn't bother me like it does a lot of people. It's there. Do you get to ignore it after a while? I think you do. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really see it as an eyesore anymore. It's something that you end up getting used to, just like the notch. I feel like that dynamic island at this point in all of these months of using it is no different from the notch, in my opinion. And I got used to it, you know what I mean? But I do love certain things about it. When you set a timer, when you have I don't know what else you got. When you're looking at Ubers, when you're doing lifts, GPS, I do like how you can use it kind of as like a little multitask to where if you have a GPS on, you can hard press it, it pops the GPS up. You can see what you got going on, and then you can close out of it. I like the certain use cases of Dynamic Island, and hopefully, maybe by the time you see this video, it's the beginning of WWDC hasn't, WWDC hasn't happened yet. Maybe they got some new things that's coming to it that'll kind of enhance the Dynamic Island with the new, with new iOS, different things like that. So hopefully we see some improvements over the line when it comes to Dynamic Island, but I do feel like the more apps start to use it, the better and better it will get, and people will start to embrace it a little bit more because it has a little better of a use case than just throwing it up there, and it is what it is. All right. Now, side note, real quick, shout out to my channel sponsor, Caudabe, man. If you are looking for a sick combination when it comes to your iPhone 14 Pro Max, look no further than the Caudabe Sheath. I know a lot of my people who are on my second channel loves the Caudabe Sheath. If you're watching this, let me see the hashtag Sheath Gang up in the comments. It's always one of the best cases for the 14 Pro Max. You get a very stiff fit that goes all the way around. You get great buttons, very strong MagSafe for people who love MagSafe, and you get a nice texture that's not going to show a whole bunch of dirt, grime that it comes for your fingers. Now, not only can you get the Sheath, you can also pair it with the Mezzo if you have AirPods as well, and you can have a matching combination with the Sheath for your 14 Pro Max and the Mezzo case, which is basically a sheath for your AirPods, all right? Links will be down below so you can grab both of these. It's just a smooth, minimal protection for your iPhone 14 Pro Max. Now, the next thing that we got to talk about is basically the body of this thing. So coming off the case of this, I got to go ahead and speak on how has the body been. Now, you guys know my full channel, my regular channel, I do nothing but accessory reviews. If you haven't checked that channel out, make sure you hit the links down below. But this body with the stainless steel signs, I take cases on and off every single day, whether it's for my own personal use or it's for that channel. And I'm gonna be real with you, I don't have many blemishes on this phone at all. Now, when it comes to the body of it, I do have a little bit when it comes to a button right here. Now, the buttons does have a little, as soon as autofocus kind of gets me right, I'm not sure what's going around autofocus, but the buttons kind of have a little bit of blemish right here, which means probably one of the cases may have been rubbing against my button and caused a little issue there. So it has a little bit of kind of like little dots letting me know that something's been rubbing against those. But other than that, on the bottom, everywhere else, this case has been absolute. The phone has been absolute flawless with taking these cases on and off. Same thing with the screen. I've been running a screen protector just about this entire time. I'm a person who runs screen protectors, but even with running a screen protector, I feel, the screen underneath is perfectly fine. So the body of it, the materials that they make, I just wish on the sides they would kind of ditch the high gloss stainless. I don't, that's just not my thing. I wish they would just go matte titanium, something like the Apple Watch Ultra. I wish they did something like that. But the body of the phone has been absolutely fine. Now, let's go ahead and talk about some of the software, because that's the main thing that kind of matures over time, whether it's good or whether it's bad. The first thing we got to talk about is battery life. All right, now, I'm a person who has came from the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and it just didn't. The 13 Pro Max battery was just next level. All right, it just did its thing. It was always good. You never had to worry about the battery on the 13 Pro Max. But fast forward to the 14 Pro Max, it ain't all the same. All right, now the battery life isn't terrible. I'm not gonna put out there and say yes, the battery life is terrible. It's just not where it is. But it's not where it was when it came to the 13 Pro Max. You can get through the day, but you have to kind of be mindful of your battery throughout that day. With the 13 Pro Max, you didn't have to. I can really nuke this battery in less than a day if I really wanted to, just going hard, doing the tasks that I want to do. Now, when it comes to the inconsistency of the OS, and we'll kind of transition to that next, I feel like some updates, the battery life improves. Some it declines. So I don't really know what Apple has going on with their software department. And that leads me to talking about iOS. And iOS these days is kind of like a mixed bag. Some days, some updates, it can be really smooth. Some updates, my phone freezes. It has its issues. It just doesn't do what I need it to do. It's just not, I'm not used to that smoothness when it comes to this. I'm just not getting it like I always got when it comes to the iOS. And I feel like there's some bugs. I feel like there's some things that Apple needs to work on in the background to bring that iOS level of smoothness back, because right now I feel like it's not there. Different bugs, whether it's freezing up, whether it's hangups. I've never had to potentially reboot my iPhone as much as I have since iOS 16, since using the 14 Pro Max. And that's kind of what I got to say about that in a nutshell. Now, when it comes to me and what I really feel about it, man, I'm at a point now where it's like, I don't know how much the ecosystem can really keep me locked in. I know a lot of people are like, oh, T, you're an Apple sheep, blah, 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 blah. You know, you guys love throwing that little sheep emoji down in the comments down below. But the more I start to use other devices, and you know I got to bring it in. I got to bring the side chick in, as I call it. The more I start using the S23 Ultra, and I feel like there are so many things that is better than the iPhone Pro Max. I'll say it on record now, the S23 Ultra is a better phone than the 14 Pro Max. You think about everything that we just ran through. We talk about the always on display. You have a better always on display. Dynamic island. You don't have a dynamic island. You have your full real estate when it comes to your display. You don't have anything to worry about that. Let's talk about the body, the design, which I feel like is a much better, lighter design, flatter, just a more sleek design. Battery life, it can be a mixed bag. I would say it's kind of on par right with the 14 Pro Max, or even better, just a little bit. In the battery, in the performance of the OS, man, Samsung has been knocking it out the park with their OS. So when you start to have experience of phones as good as the S23 Ultra, and then you start using the iPhone 14 Pro Max with iOS and just hanging on to that ecosystem, hanging on to devices like your Apple Watch, like your AirPods, your MacBook, your iPad, FaceTime, iMessage, all of those Apple things, it's like, how much can you take before you be like, you know what, I'm just going to venture off when it comes to the mobile side of things and use something else, and I'll figure it out with my other products. And I feel like that's where I'm at right now. I feel like the iPhone has to do something to really bring a lot of people back. Yes, they still dominate when it comes to talking about the numbers, when it comes to iPhone versus other things. I don't get into the numbers, but I see the charts out there. And you see that iPhone does this thing, but you've seen a lot of people who are truly into tech start to move over to the S23 Ultra because this thing is that good. So I don't really know what's keeping me with the iPhone 14 Pro Max, but iPhone has to do something soon because time and time goes by where I feel like, you know what? I want to pick up the S23 Ultra and start using it as my daily because it honestly checks every single box for me when it comes to a mobile device. So that's about it. That's all I wanted to talk about with this 8 months later. I just want to truly talk about an experience over time with different areas of this phone because I feel like that's what matters most. Just real world experience, getting in front of the camera, talking to you guys. You know, I don't really get involved with all that fancy B-roll and stuff, but you let me know in the comments down below, what are you feeling with this 14 Pro Max? If you got it, how are you liking it? How has that experience been over this 8 months time span? So let me know. I'll be reading the comments. You know I'm being in the comments heavy. But if you want to see what I feel about the S23 Ultra after a few months, I also did that video as well, and I'll pop that video right here.